Justin Trudeau killed Energy East, and now he's lying to cover it up. That's right. Energy East was shut down, a $16 billion investment that would have created thousands of jobs and tens of billions of dollars of value that could have realized the dream of energy independence by allowing people down east to displace conflict oil shipped in from places like Saudi Arabia and Venezuela with Alberta and Saskatchewan oil. But it's been shut down because the National Energy Board, at the prompting of the federal government, decided to get into the business of regulating carbon emissions when a pipeline doesn't really produce CO2. It just ships oil. It doesn't consume it or develop it. But don't take my word for it. First of all, right here, I've got a letter from August 23rd of this year, where the National Energy Board announced that it was going to get into this business of regulating CO2 emissions. It said that given increasing public interest in greenhouse gas emissions, together with increasing governmental actions and commitments, including the federal government's stated interest in assessing upstream GHG emissions associated with major pipelines, the board is of the view that it should also consider indirect greenhouse gas emissions in its NEB Act public interest determination for each of the Energy East projects. That's what the NEB said. That's why they got into the business of looking at carbon emissions. And then just 2 weeks later, on September the 7th, TransCanada Pipeline hit the pause button on Energy East after spending $1 billion on that project, saying that they were doing so, quotes, due to the significant changes to the regulatory process introduced by the NEB. So, Prime Minister, we're not stupid. We can read these documents. The National Energy Board is telling us that your government told them to start regulating carbon emissions, and TransCanada is telling us they killed Energy East for that reason. So, Prime Minister, how about you step up and take responsibility for this instead of trying to hide? And this same Facebook posting, Justin Trudeau says he's disturbed that some are trying to use the end of the Energy East pipeline dream to stoke regional tensions. Prime Minister, it's you who's doing exactly that. I haven't heard the Prime Minister utter a single word about the huge cement factory that's just been opened in Quebec with massive taxpayer subsidies that will produce more carbon in a given year than most Alberta oil sands development. Have you heard him say anything about that? I haven't heard him raise the fact that that cement project was developed without environmental assessment, with no regard for its carbon emissions. I haven't heard our Prime Minister say a word about the carbon that will be produced by the airplanes made at Bombardier with taxpayer subsidies partly funded by Albertans. I'm sorry, Prime Minister, it's you who is causing regional alienation. Under the Harper government, Western alienation went to its lowest level in polling history, but I am hearing more expressions of serious alienation, including separatist sentiment in Alberta than I've ever heard in my entire adult life. Prime Minister, you've created this situation. You must be held accountable for it. And this is another reason why we need an Alberta Premier who has the ability to stand up to Justin Trudeau and defend this province, a government in Alberta that will be a watchdog for our province's interests rather than a lapdog for Justin Trudeau's Ottawa Liberals.